and I'm pleased to introduce as our first speaker, Henriette Burghoorn, Associate Director of Market Access at Gilead, who will speak about willingness to pay thresholds and rethinking them with implications for HTA. So Henriette?
Yes. So that should be a clicker here. Yes, great. Well, thank you for speaking here. It's a small group, I can see, so I hope a lot of questions are coming. And this is really a Dutch presentation, you could say. So there are, of course, more HTA countries. And with HTA country, I mean that in the Netherlands, we need to submit a dossier including cost effectiveness. So that's also the case in like a lot of Nordic countries, but definitely for the Netherlands. So that is something we want to talk about because we have willingness to pay thresholds in the Netherlands. Is it working? Or this one? So this presentation is really meant for educational and informational purposes. Just to introduce myself another time, so I'm Henriette Burghoorn from the Netherlands. I'm working as Associate Director for Gilead Sciences Netherlands, in the affiliate in Amsterdam. And I'm working there for around 8 years. I worked on a lot of reimbursement dossiers and a lot of reimbursement and funding questions, so I could say that I'm an expert on that. I'm not an expert on cost effectiveness or models like that, so just be aware of that. So Gilead's mission is to discover, develop, and deliver innovative therapeutics for people with life-threatening diseases. And they started in 1987, and then they delivered around 30 new innovative medicines that cure, treat, and prevent life-threatening diseases. So, before I really start talking about the thresholds, I just want you to know where we are standing as the Netherlands in our willingness to pay for pharmaceutical spending in the European context. And I don't know if you know, but also the Netherlands have a pretty high GDP. So, I mean, it's not about the money because our country is rather rich in Europe. So, where do we stand? So, the red is the Netherlands. So you can see, compared to the whole health spending, this is of course a number in 2022, but I can tell you it's always Denmark or Netherlands who is the lowest. So we don't spend a lot. And that's one side, it's because we need to show the cost effectiveness of new products, innovative products. And the other side is that once we are losing loss of exclusivity of a product in the Netherlands, then you have generics or biosimilars, but the price is going down like 80, 90% as much, and sometimes even more. So in overall, if you look at the pharmaceutical spending in the Netherlands, it is low. If you look at our healthcare budget for the Netherlands, and then on the pharmaceutical spending, it's about 6 to 7%. And this is already for, I don't know how many years, 10 years, maybe 20 years. So it's not really changing that much. And it's of course also because the total spending is going up, but the total spending of our healthcare budget is also going up. So it's more or less the same. I don't know how visible, yeah, it's quite visible. So you see a line going up, so that's the total spending of the pharmaceutical products. But then if you would also take into account the inflation, and you would take that off, then you can see it is rather flat. It's even going down a little bit, and that has to do with when quite expensive products lose their exclusivity, and that is what happened there actually. Then you see that the price is going down because biosimilars are entering the market and the price is much lower. So in a way, that's what when we are saying, so there is space or room again for innovative medication that still have a higher price because they just were developed. But in the Netherlands, the thinking is a little bit different about that, but okay. So has the Dutch willingness to pay decreased over time for new pharmaceutical innovations in oncology? So for this, we're looking specifically at the FPL weight indicator. This is of 2021. And 4 out of 15 approved innovations are available in the Netherlands in 2021. So if you look at Germany, well, I think we probably all know that in Germany, most products are available in the market very quickly after registration. So you can see the most there. And then we are, well, between Luxembourg and Belgium, which is still quite an okay place. But if you look over the years, in 2018, it was still nearly 92%. 2019, 88%. 2020, 64, 21, 27. And I can tell you that even went down because I checked last week and we went down to that spot. So it is going down. And there are several reasons for that. It's not only cost effectiveness, it's not only the willingness to pay threshold, but it's also because the HCPs in the Netherlands are also very cost conscious, and they set up their own rule of efficacy measures, to say it like that. So even though it's approved by EMA, for the Netherlands they're saying no, it should be even providing more efficacy than what Europe thinks is okay. So, looking at the way reimbursement dossiers are being evaluated to get it included in the basic insurance package in the Netherlands, we have 4 package criteria. So necessary care, effectiveness, cost effectiveness, and feasibility. And this was set up by the Dunning Commission report in 1991, so pretty old, you could say, but I think this is still very good working system. And it was called the funnel of Dunning, and that had to mean like, okay, there are a lot of products, then you have to let them go through the criteria, and then only the best will be available at the market. And at this time, the cost effectiveness is weighed against 3 thresholds. So that's depending on, I don't know if, is this also a pointer? Or it's not, no, maybe not. So we have 20K for low disease burden, 50K for a bit higher disease burden, and 80K for a very heavy disease burden. So if like oncology and you are going to, well, you have the prediction to die within a year, then you are more in the 80K part. And of course, it also depends how many therapeutic options are available for those kind of people still. So then you can range between the 50 or 80K. That really depends. Looking at the 4 package criteria, actually the only one that is written in law is the one of effectiveness. However, well, and actually that is the first step. You always need to be able to show that your product is effective in our market, so the PICO really for our market, for the Netherlands. If you are passing that hurdle, then they're going to look at cost effectiveness, and this is being done more and more. And looking at those thresholds, you could say, okay, they're still okay, but what they do is also taking into account the PICO, you're submitting your dossier, and then they're like, oh, but you said your population is 60 years old, but actually we think it's 65, so your ICER is going up. And they're trying to look more and more for these kind of things. So when you think you will be able to get to one of these thresholds, it's still a big question mark what your HTA body, our HTA body, is going to do. Just to keep that in mind. So where does our current willingness to pay threshold comes from? So we need to go back a little bit in time. So they were thinking about this quite some time, and the start of the threshold was in 2006, suggested as a linear model related to disease severity with a maximum of 80K. And this was based on different sources going back to 1999 and 2006. So looking at the WHO standard, 3 times the national product per capita, the annual cost per patient for a nursing home, international studies on implicit thresholds, so that was a range, research by Devlin and Parking of the decisions of NICE, well, we all know that changed, a meta-analysis of estimates of the value of statistical life in the US from 1999. So, pretty old data. And what our question is are these still representative for our healthcare system today? So in 2010, our healthcare institute, our HTA body, started using the willingness to pay threshold with 3 distinct threshold values. So they said, okay, we're doing not a linear model, but 3 thresholds. So the 80K was proposed by the Council of Public Health and Society in 2006. The 50K was research-based, average of a Dutch person would like to spend on care, and the 20K is the reference value for vaccines. So our question is it time for a change? And this is not only our question, actually also the HTA body is asking this because they actually think the prices are going up and up and up, and they should go down, down, down. So actually they also are thinking about this, but of course the other way around. So our reference value set in 2006, still reflecting patients' needs and the right willingness to pay in 2025. Is an 80K QALY threshold the right reference value for a high disease burden? Is the stricter application for the willingness to pay threshold the right progress for decision-making in the reimbursed package? So these are the questions we're working on. So the first one, looking at the Dutch willingness to pay, it has decreased with 32% since the introduction in 2006 by not correcting for inflation. This was work that was done by an external consultant. I'm going to talk you through it, but for me, it's not completely that I'm into the calculation. So when we correct for inflation of the 80,000 at this moment, so then you would say, okay, that equals actually 117,000 in 2023. That's an increase of 47%. If you look the other way around, 80,000 today equals 45,000 in 2006. So that's a devaluation of 32%. And just an example, if you take the Big Mac and you would buy it in 2006 and you would buy it now, there's a 75% increase. So if that happens, why did it not happen with our QALYs or our thresholds, I mean? It's like if I would say to my teenage daughter, okay, the pocket money you get this week, as now on, you're getting it based on the price that you would get in 2006. I'm thinking that she wouldn't like it. I wouldn't like to get my salary based on 2006 value. So I don't know how you feel about that, but that's a little bit how I see it here. So the second one, investing in high patient burden is common and can be achieved by flexing the current threshold system. And this is already happening, of course. For example, air medical services are still being deployed in high burden cases. So is that cost effective? Well, I would say it's almost never cost effective. It's very expensive. And you could say the same for kidney dialysis. That's very expensive as well and will not meet any of the thresholds I mentioned. So what we're suggesting is by flexing the current system, a linear model could already shift the willingness to pay threshold for high disease burden, because then you can go up to 114K per QALY. Third one. So returning to an integral assessment of all package criteria creates room for customized decision-making. Because when it was introduced, the willingness to pay thresholds were not intended as hard decision criterions, but a holistic weighing of all package criteria. And what we see now more and more often is that the cost effectiveness, of course, after the effectiveness, is really a hard criterion. So if you do not meet that, the advice is going to be not to be taken into the basic insurance package, but to negotiate on the price, and they will suggest a discount. And if we look at high burden and, or rare diseases, there's no less stringent look at on the cost effectiveness. That was the idea in 2010, but it's not done that anymore. So if we have to deal with an orphan disease, we have the same regulations as for a regular disease, to say it like that. So that's pretty hard if you want to try to get reimbursement for that. So the willingness to pay threshold in the Netherlands. Is it time for an update? So I told you that the willingness to pay has decreased in the Netherlands over the last years. And actually, it is really decreasing pretty fast now. And our pharmaceutical expenses is one of the lowest in Europe. And less innovations are becoming available to patients in the Netherlands. And actually not only innovations, what we also see is that, of course, our standard of care is changing. And we used to be a country with a lot of clinical trials. That's also going down a lot. Because why? Well, first of all, why are you going to a country where less innovations are becoming available? Second of that, if your standard of care is not representative for Europe anymore, you cannot go to the Netherlands anymore. So it's not just the innovations that are not coming to our country, it's also the clinical trials. So our patients have less chances in survival because less clinical trials are coming to our country. And also for the science in our country, this is a problem. But still, our government and the HTA body do not see that as a problem. They think we should lower our prices. And then the willingness to pay threshold have not been corrected since the introduction of 2006. So we used to be, as a sector, pretty low in shouting out, I would say. And we are now more and more trying to do this and also try to explain why things should be looked at differently. And also that innovations cost money. I mean, it's really expensive to come to a new drug. I think everybody knows that here. So that's why it's important. And this impacts the health of patients and also their ability to participate in our society. And you could think that because of the aging population, they are willing to invest more in medications. We don't see that, so it's less. And we think that if people could stay at home longer because of medications or have a better life because of new innovations, that could also help in the aging population. But they don't look at that. So I'm really surprised by that. So what we suggest, to reassess the thresholds periodically with relevant healthcare partners to keep them up to date. And shift the thinking on willingness to pay for high patient burden, so really specifically for that group. Integral evaluation, all HTA criteria for reimbursement decision-making, objective, transparent, and suited for customized decision-making, and making it pragmatic and not very strict. So we do have a good system, I think, in the Netherlands, if you look at the procedure, because it is rather clear, but it's not all that transparent. So that could change, and I would like to see a more pragmatic decision-making system. So we propose to evolve the willingness to pay within our current system. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Henriette. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly.
Oh, that's fine.
Do we have any questions for Henriette? I mean, I have one.
Yes.
Thanks a lot for the explanation of the willingness to pay. You have very well defined the objective, what you want to change.
Yes.
How do you achieve that? What's in the way to make that happen?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and that's why I was telling you that as a sector, so also because we work a lot through the Pharma Trade Organization, they never really wanted to shout out, but now we are seeing that the HTA body is putting more in the media. They're really saying that pharmaceutical companies are really have excessive profits because of our medication, and our society is paying too much, etc., things like that. So we're trying now all the arguments that they're saying, also posting in the media, and also trying to, if people want to say something about it, put it on the paper, put it in LinkedIn, and of course here, providing presentations. So this is also something we're doing more often, because they're coming with a lot of arguments that are not true, because they say, for example, that, the picture that I was showing you, that of course the total cost of pharma spending is going up, but in real life it is staying flat. And also if you look at the hospital cost, you see that it's staying flat. But what they did is they used another set of numbers, of course, and they said, okay, if you compare it to 2012, but then not all spending was in the same, well, bucket, to say it like that, then it went up this much. And then we said, that's not correct, because, and then we are saying, okay, this went from that bucket to that bucket, so it did stay flat, and it even went down. So it's working. The market environment, how you want it to work, works. So we're doing that much more, and we did not used to do that. And that's a switch, I think, in thinking from our side, because we always were thinking if we are saying something against them, and partly this is true, they're going to say, we stop with your reimbursement dossier. And that is, these are things that are happening. So, so we're shifting our thoughts, and we're trying to be more vocal and trying to set the arguments straight if they're not correct. And a lot of them are not correct. So that is actually what we are doing. And then, of course, we are also going to the policy people, so the ministers of the different. We have elections in this in October again, so let's see.
So having worked in the international business, of course, I'm aware of the situation in the Netherlands a bit. The funny situation here in Germany is that we have a trade union of the researching pharmaceutical company, and their boss is from the Netherlands.
Oh, really?
Whenever he complains to German politicians about the German systems, they usually say, why don't you go home to the
Yeah.
In Germany, we know very well that the supply with pharmaceuticals in the Netherlands is not as good as in
Yeah.
Germany. Looking back 2-3 years, we had supply problems here in Germany with several drugs, and people were complaining to the government. So for drugs used with children, for antibiotics, and all those stuff.
Oh, wow.
So what we have, a lot of people complaining about the German system. So do you also have patients complaining in the Netherlands?
That's mainly focused on generic medications, because since the prices of generic and biosimilar medication is so low in the Netherlands, we are one of the countries manufacturers don't always deliver as much or the first to, because if they can get a better price, of course, somewhere else, they will go there. So we have a lot of shortages, and that's a big issue in the Netherlands. So they're trying also, of course, to set up rules for that, to have a stock, but that's not really helping a lot. So patients are complaining on that. They're not complaining about innovative medications. A lot of times they are really not aware. And it's also because in the media, of course, the HTA body or the government is being seen as the trustworthy partner and not us. So we're trying, that's why we are trying to put out our arguments more firm. And we try to do it very factual, without emotion. But in that way, trying to show, okay, you know, it's not crazy what we're doing, and it's not crazy the prices we are asking. It's just how it works, how this research and development cost actually for manufacturing or bringing to the market a new product. So yeah.
So I have quite an operational and specific question. You've given us some flexibility on the highness, willingness to pay, or threshold. And I just wonder whether there is also some flexibility in a way when you come to the market with a new product that is lasting for longer than 1 year. Because usually these thresholds, they are for 1 year, right? But now with CAR-T or with gene therapies, there are longer time periods for.
How much time do I have?
I think we're okay.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I worked on CAR-T dossiers, and the first CAR-T was for us, I think I can say that here, it was Yescarta. It's not meant for promotional purposes, just want to say that. And then they really didn't know how to work with a once provided, well, how do you say, application of a product, which is the case with the CAR-T. And then, of course, you have to make an exploration over like 20, 30 years. So how do you do that? And for third-line DLBCL, it was accepted that after, when a patient would still be alive after 2 years, they would say, okay, then we can compare with a healthy person, of course, a little bit less healthy, but that was okay. But based on the model, they did not accept. But by then, they were not saying no yet. if they said your methodology, is not good enough. So they said, just go negotiate with your government. So that's actually what we did. But then the second time we had to go with a new indication with a CAR T, they just burned us down because they said there's too much uncertainty because in the long term we don't know what's going to happen, and we never got that product reimbursed as of now. And it's actually very disturbing me because the life gain is huge, as most of the time with the CAR T. And then the third time, it was in the same indication area, and fortunately, well, by then, our government, our HTA body is saying you need to have at least 2 or 3 years follow-up, and of course, EMA registration is based on 1 year. So we knew that we had to wait before submitting our dossier, so we did that. And then actually also OS was reached, even though it was in second line, and we had a lot of crossover, to say it like that. So that was quite scary, because then we knew, okay, is this good enough to still show a benefit? And actually it was, so that was really surprising. And then, of course, looking at the qualies, so we had to reach the 50K. We reached, I mean, when I did the model, we were below, of course, but then they started turning on these knobs, and of course it went up, but it was still very acceptable. So that's, yeah. But it is difficult. Yeah.
Maybe to add here only one point, and then you see very nicely the evolution, I think, of the healthcare system here. When we negotiated Zolgensma as one of the first cell and gene therapies at Novartis with Benelux, actually, at that point of time it was Belgium and Netherlands doing this together. All the thresholds were totally unrealistic, unacceptable for all sides. And finally, we achieved reimbursement. But in the meantime, as you correctly said, the healthcare system learned about how to deal with cell and gene therapies and very quickly learn how to apply that and how to scrutinize prices, I have to say.
Yeah.
And of course, SMA is also people die or babies die every moment if you don't give them the medication. So there was also high pressure from parents and patients.
Yeah.
I think we may have time for 2 more questions.
Yeah. Thank you. So I have a question about the products where the authorities, Zin, for example, doesn't agree that there is a quality gain versus a comparator. So in those cases, you end up with just a cost comparison. Do you know, I'm just curious, do you have any idea of like what percentage of products that they assess, or how common it is that they don't accept any added value and just refer to a cost comparison? So
we have 2 systems in the Netherlands, and one is for inpatient and one is for outpatient. If you like, in outpatient, it's more common that it's a comparable value, and then your price, that's correct, should not go over the price of, well, whatever is in, we call it the cluster.
Yeah.
So the percentage, I couldn't say, but I think in that system, it is happening more often that you do that, because it's also quite an easy approach, because you don't have to do a cost-effectiveness dossier. So that's, you don't have to do the cost-effectiveness analysis. So you're only saying we're equal value, so our price is going to be the same, and that's it.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of the cases where the pharma company wants to demonstrate that there is an added value, so they're not happy with the price in the cluster, and they want to use the cost effectiveness to demonstrate what the fair price is. But then Zin says,
so
added value.
Another approach for that is that you really have to look, okay, where is really added value, and you have to discuss with the HCPs how they see that, because if your product has more or less the same value in like the second line, maybe it's better that you provide this drug in the third line for those patients that do not have or cannot have that product or therapeutic options in the second line. So for that, we do go to the HCPs. We're asking, how do you see this product? Because the HCPs in our country are very cost conscious. So if you come with a new price, a product, a lot of times they're saying, but for second line, we have already this and it works fine. We don't need it there. Only for those patients that do not have enough with that, there we do see a place. And then if they are going to say in their guidelines that this product should be there, or if they set up like a white paper or a report, and they put that down, you can add that to your reimbursement dossier and just point that out to ZIN, to the healthcare institute. If they accept, then this is a condition in your reimbursement. So then you are only allowed, or the physicians are only allowed to prescribe this in third line to this specific group of patients. So that is an option, because if you are able with your data to show added value in that group of patients, then you have an option to go forward.
Thank you.
Thanks. Maybe one last question before we close. Could you go back to the slide where you showed the percentage of oncology products that are reimbursed over time? I just wanted to ask, if you were to have 114,000 euro per quali threshold, what do you think the percentages would look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would like actually more than 114,000, because that's the linear model as it is right now. I think let me check. Where is it? I think it's not this one. It should be later. But I think it would shift up to, is it going forward? Yeah. Let me think. If I would think of our products, I think you would have, because now the products are being really said no to, because it's not going to happen. We had that as well. So I think you would get near to 100%, maybe not 100. Let's say 80%, because part of the oncology products that are not reaching the Netherlands is also the efficacy measure that oncologists have set up. So a lot of indications or trials of new products do not meet the efficacy criteria of this group of physicians. So they have said, for example, it used to be you need to show a 12-week difference plus an HR below 0.7, and now it needs to be a 16-week difference versus standard of care with an HR of below 0.7. So that's like way more, and it's not or, it's and. So that is, I think, one of the biggest hurdles in oncology medications, aside, of course, of the cost. So with 114, you will not change that directly. If you look at the oncology medications that still go through, I think you really would go up in the percentage to get products to the market.
Thank you very much, Henriette. A great presentation.
Thank you.